Jack, I know you cover Georgia, Auburn, all things SEC. Kind of balance several different states and different leagues, conferences. But talking the Bulldogs right now in that game from last weekend, one, how kind of historic was it for the Bulldogs to lose at home for the first time in nearly 6 years after a streak that was kind of unprecedented?
Put it to you this way, Simone, okay? So two ways. First, you mentioned the streak, 33 games, okay? The last time they had lost was against South Carolina back in 2019, okay? But personally, I've been covering college football here now for 10 years, okay? And that was only the second time I've ever seen Georgia lose at home.
That's
the
crazy.
Other time was the Dobb nail boot, that Josh Dobbs and Jawan Jennings, Tennessee in 2016. So, like, Georgia losing at Sanford Stadium just doesn't happen.
It doesn't.
It doesn't. And it was it's a major feather in the cap for Kalen DeBoer.
Yeah, and honestly, when you look at that, the scenics there, you could feel it on TV. Of course, I was just watching it, from my house here in the Mobile area, and you could just tell. You got the chills of just the atmosphere, Jack. I've been there. I was at the Auburn game a few years ago, and it's very, very tough place to play. I think that it's underrated. It's even harder to play, obviously, when you're playing at home and at night, no less. What did you take away from that game, and how do you feel like the team is looking to bounce back? What is the messaging you're hearing from Kirby Smart, from this veteran Bulldogs team that has won national championships? I mean, they're not an up-and-comer. I mean, Georgia is a college football playoff or bust program.
So I'll kind of tackle that. So first, the atmosphere on Saturday night was unreal, okay? There were several points during the game where the camera was shaking in my hand.
That's awesome.
Okay, the camera was vibrating in my hand from how loud the stadium was.
That's incredible. You can tell.
Like it was an incredible atmosphere, and it just goes, more kudos to Alabama for what they did. Okay, because it's just not easy. It's not easy winning at Sanford Stadium, period. But to do it at night is something that you can really hang your hat on, and I think can be a turnaround point for them. As for Georgia, Kirby Smart has said that, the players have, felt this loss, okay? They've felt it. He described it as, them being hurt. And is that, said that when it's really unique to see them, how they're reacting when they're hurt.
Yeah.
Because you see their motivations, you see how much they care about what they're doing. And he says that, that's kind of been the statement at practice this week is, everybody's motivated to not let that happen again. And, because let's be clear about it. This was a very winnable game for Georgia, okay? I think it was a very winnable game, and they made some uncharacteristic mistakes, and that ended up costing them the game. So, it's definitely a shock to the system without a shadow of a doubt. But I think it's the opportunity where if it's going to happen, it's a good thing it happens now and not later in the year when you got Ole Miss and Texas coming in, or when you're getting ready trying to make a run to the playoff or the SEC championship, whatever the case might be. You can fix things now, whereas you still got 2 months of the season left. Whereas down the line, you have less opportunities to fix something if you were to fall short again.
Yeah, you're right.
I'll bring up what I think is a kind of a lazy argument, but it's worth talking about for a second. People in the NFL do this with Lamar Jackson and Patrick Mahomes. Like, Lamar's unbelievable, MVP, and rightfully so. He just can't seem to beat Patrick Mahomes. Kirby Smart's won national championships, but for some reason, Alabama is just that team. Do you think that there is something there when the Crimson Tide is on the other sideline? Because, we have a pretty large sample size here. Or is it just, hey, on those 2 Saturdays against Kalen DeBoer and the many Saturdays against Nick Saban, he just did not have his A game?
Gerhard.
Be honest, Jack. Be honest, Jack. Be honest, Jack.
Well, I'm going to be honest. Okay? I don't sit here and think that it's a mental thing, okay? Because in the vast majority of those games, it has been a dogfight. No pun intended here. Sure. Okay? It's been a slugfest between both of those teams. It just so happens that, there's a play or two that sends things to Tide's way. Okay? Did Georgia play terrible on Saturday? No. Did they play, A+ ball? No. They made mistakes. They had, that couple of fourth downs to where they should have gotten it and didn't get it. the crazy penalty that they had, that extended drives for Alabama, not being able to get off the field on third down. Like I said, it's not that they're playing terrible, but they weren't playing at their best. Okay, the only time we've seen them play at their best is the national championship game in Indianapolis. So, like I said, a lot of times these games come down to one or two things that separate the two teams.
And I'll tell you what that one or two things are, because we're not talking about the team here. We're talking about Kirby Smart. This guy, and listen, I'm a noted Kirby Smart critiquer, but I'm telling you right now, there are no moments I have seen him more disheveled, more that his visor and his headset cannot fit on his head at the same time together than when he is playing the freaking Crimson A on the other side. This guy looks so disheveled every single time the script A is on the other side. He cannot handle the moment. I don't know if it is I thought it was a Saban thing. I swear I thought it was a Saban thing. I'm like, this is Saban. And then Saban retired. And then we had last year. And I'm like, this year, man, Bama's down. This is at Georgia. This is at Georgia. 6 years, Jack. 6 years, Jack.
And the only reason why I was asking is because
I was going to ask. I was so mad that you already asked, quite frankly, because I wanted to ask, and so I'm mad that you asked. Because I was ready to ask, and I was like, dang it, Gerhard, where are you going with this?
And sometimes I think, though, too, and I think with Lamar Jackson, you just think he's at some point he's going to be
Patrick Mahomes. You know what we like to call this? It's called always the bridesmaid, never the bride. That's what we call that in life as women. So this is what he is. That he's always the bridesmaid, never the bride. And here's the deal. I know the guy's won a couple national championships, and that made him feel like but he was the guy for a minute, back-to-back, right? Then they weren't in the playoffs. You're like, okay, is there a drop-off, or is there an issue with the system? I mean, there was an argument that they should have been there, and then that playoff, I get it. Okay, that's great. And I take all of that stuff off the table. Alabama, as his former employer, does something to this man mentally that could honestly be dissected. There is documentation that could be made about this thing. There's a therapy session that could be involved in what it is that this guy goes through mentally. Make no mistake, it's mental when the script A is on the other side. It is so obvious.
And I think the reason why I'm asking you is because it's not that they're bad in close games. I mean, they took a miracle last year to beat Kentucky 13-12. They went to Knoxville, played terribly for a half, ended up finding a way to win that game 44-41. So it's like they've won close games. It's just like it feels like when that school's on the other sideline, they falter.
They can't close the deal. Yeah. They can't close the deal.
I mean, Jack, tell me this. Does it seem like, because I don't listen to Kirby every time he wins or loses a game. You've seen some losses, not many, but because they won a lot of games. But when he loses to Alabama, is there a different feel? And let's be honest about it, because I know that you love the Bulldogs. You watch you cover the Bulldogs, and that's just inherently as reporters, you start to just build relationships with people. So naturally, you just want to see these guys, these teams, these coaches do well. You don't really get involved in really hey, that I love this program necessarily, but you want to see these guys do well. So you can get a read. Does it seem like Kirby Smart just has an added disappointment, an added this one just really hurts when it is Alabama on the other sideline?
I don't know if disappointment's the word, Simone. I think it's more frustration.
Yeah.
Okay. I think it's frustration because I feel like he knows his team can be better than what it showed on the field. Okay.
Yeah.
And you're right. I've seen a couple of times. I covered the SEC championship. The infamous Jalen Hurts taking over for Tua Tagovailoa. I was there for that SEC championship, and I heard him in the press conference after that. And I heard him, last night.
That was one to remember for sure.
Last Saturday, yeah, Jalen Hurts scored that touchdown. I was in that end zone.
Bro, that was. I was sitting right next to you. To be honest with you, that was unbelievable. That was unbelievable.
But the thing is I don't think it's disappointment. I think it's frustration.
Okay. If I were him, I'd be frustrated too. I would be too with myself.
Because he holds his team to such a high standard that when you have those moments elapse and it costs you the game, I think that's the kicker. And I think that is not disappointment, it's frustration that he knows his team can be better.
Absolutely.
And like I said, he holds them to such a high standard, at every turn. So to be able to not being able to get the job done, it definitely it's a thorn in the side. That much I can tell you.
And I would think that
that's a good way to put it.
Yeah, I would think that there'd be no worse team to play right now than the Georgia Bulldogs, very angry football team as Kentucky comes in. However, Last year, this was a 1-point game, 13-12. What's the messaging this time around? As you mentioned, his team angry this past week, being able to handle those emotions and then go out and execute against the team, playing for their coach there in Mark Stoops, who's essentially playing for his job this year.
You know, the one thing I've, heard from Coach Smart and the players is that you cannot underestimate this Kentucky squad. Okay. And a lot of people are they're saying, Georgia's going to win by 1 billion. Okay. And, basically Coach Smart has been trying to do his best to not get his players to buy into that, that they need to do their job. Okay. Because, he made it simple that you can't let the Alabama loss beat you twice. Okay. And what he meant by that is you can't be so hung up on the loss to Alabama that it impacts your play against Kentucky, because he's said it once, he said it 1,000 times. Anybody in the SEC can beat anybody.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
We saw it. We saw last week. A lot of people thought Mississippi State not really a great team. Well, they almost went to Neyland and beat Tennessee. Okay. So anybody in this league can beat anybody, and you can't take anybody for granted. And that's what Kirby Smart has been preaching to his guys, and that's what the players have been saying, that's their main focus. Like, hey, listen, Alabama game is done and over. Okay, ain't nothing you can do about it.
He's saying that to himself too. To the guys, and to himself.
Agree.
So they don't get beat twice on the field or in the coaching staff.
But you can't let that game beat you twice. Okay, because it's one thing if you lose to an Alabama team. Well, let's just be real. Alabama had their season to play for on Saturday night. Okay.
Oh yeah.
Because
two losses and you put on ice. 2 losses and your playoff opportunity starts to get questioned. There's no doubt about that. I think we did hear from. Do we have? We heard from Kirby. Let's take some of that Kirby sound here. What he had to say as they gear up for the Kentucky Wildcats.
Man, it's amazing. Mark's one of my close friends. We've grown because we've been in it the longest together, and he's been in it longer than me. And I text him all the time. It's just really amazing what he's done at Kentucky, and it's one of those things that I hope they appreciate what he's done, because he's done some incredible things, broken some records up there, been extremely competitive in our league, and that's not necessarily by record. I mean, it is by record sometimes, but the games that he's been in and the way they've played is incredible. You can tell he inspires his team to play extremely hard, and they're always physical. So I just have so much respect for Mark because of I know his history. We kind of grew up the same way. Coach's son, defense coordinator, been some good places, got a head job, and he's worked his tail off.
Hearing that adoration there, Jack, makes me think that when Mark Stoops gets let go eventually in Kentucky, he's about to be a defensive analyst in Georgia.
Wouldn't surprise me. Okay, wouldn't surprise me.
Take your buyout money and go help us in the team meetings.
But seriously, that's not the first time that Kirby Smart has, talked glowingly of Mark Stoops. Is not the first time this year. It's not the first time in his tenure at Georgia, okay? Yeah. He's always held Coach Stoops in high regard. There's always been a mutual respect between the two coaches. So it doesn't surprise me at all. And Gerhard, it wouldn't surprise me if that were the case, okay? It would not surprise me.
Jack, one thing that we were able to see from Georgia against Alabama is that ground game. I was sitting there thinking, man, they were one run away. Why didn't run the ball on that 4th down plays? I will never understand. But they were one run away from running away with this game. Certainly the opportunity was there. Posted more than 200 rushing yards, and some of those just came in huge, big bulk plays. How big of a impact is this ground game, and how do you think that this program can just really take advantage of that moving forward? Of course, Gunnar Stockton is great in his own right, but to be able to have some threat there in the backfield, how important is that, Jack?
Well, Simone, Georgia's, cranked out running backs left, right, and center for, a decade at this point, okay? Sure. And this going into this year, it was kind of, a question mark for the first time in forever, okay? But when you see guys like Chauncey Bowens having a breakout game, when, Dwight Phillips, Josh McCray, when you see these guys starting to come into their own, like, that is a big, big deal, okay? And, I'm really excited to see where that running back room goes, because there had been a drop off. A lot of people haven't, the casual fan wouldn't know this, but Dell McGee, who was one of Kirby's assistants. He was over that running back room.
Mm-hmm.
Del McGee is a Columbus product, so I have, plenty of knowledge about him. He was over that running back room, and he was a big reason why Georgia has had so much success in their ground game over the last decade. Well, he took the job at Georgia State a couple years ago,
Mm-hmm.
and there had been a drop-off. But now you're starting to see that running back room come back together. That's what you wanted to see. And now you've got a group of backs that you can start to depend on now. Chauncey Bowens had a phenomenal game on Saturday night against the Tide. And, Josh McCray, of course, he had the game-winning touchdown against Tennessee a few weeks back. So, you're starting to be able to trust those guys.
Yep.
And now that combination plus the receivers that they got in the room now, I really do think that the offense is kind of starting to set up the way that they need it to.
Sure.
And that's good now. Get it set up now because, once you get past this week, business really starts to pick up, okay? Because you got the road trip down here to Auburn for the D Southholders rivalry next Saturday night. And Simone, just as well as anybody that
that's a
weird
wild
things go
game.
on
Auburn
at
comes by. You just never know.
Auburn,
weird things happen when Auburn Jesus gets involved, but that's what we know for a fact, Georgia.
And it's a night game on top of that.
Yeah.
So weird things happen, and then on top of that, like I said earlier, you still got Ole Miss, you still got Texas, and oh, by the way, that game against Georgia Tech ain't a pushover no more. Tech's good, and it's gonna be a showdown in Mercedes-Benz Stadium at the end of the month, at the end of November, I should say.
Yeah,
so
wait.
It's really a good time for that running back room to really start to come into his own.
Yeah. Jack Patterson joining us from Columbus. Appreciate all of your insight as always, Jack. Not sure where you got that rotating Georgia helmet, but I can't wait to have one delivered here to Mobile. Whatever hookup you have, I would like to have at least one of those for every single conference.
Thank my grandma for that. That is a Christmas present.
Grandma. Okay, well, I'm going to text my grandma and tell her I would like one of those. Or at least I would actually like all 16 strong here in the studio, and I would like them to be rotating the entire show. So Jack Patterson holding it down from WRBL there in Columbus. Georgia, appreciate your time, sir, and we will check back in with you next week.
Appreciate it, y'all.